There's a piece in Politico, which we all know has been on the government payroll under the Democrats with USAID, literally. And it's rather left-wing. And it has a story in there about these young Republicans over an 8 to 9 month period who were communicating, they thought, privately with each other. And they have apparently had leaked to them an enormous number of these texts, and these texts reveal some very hideous and horrific language and characterizations used by these young Republicans. Now, they're not all 14 years old. In fact, none of them are. A young Republican, quote unquote, is pretty much anybody from the age of 18 to 40. And certain of these individuals were office holders within the young Republican establishment. One was a state senator and things of that sort. And things they said about black people, one said or who said, comparing them to monkeys, Jewish people and Hitler and gas chambers and all the rest. Pretty loathsome stuff, pretty awful stuff. In fact, very awful stuff. And it's been made public, obviously by leaks and so forth, somebody gathering the information over a period of time, but that doesn't really change anything, you know. And there's been some controversy that there's not been enough criticism, or there's been too much criticism, and well, what about the guy who's running for Attorney General of Virginia? And in his case, he wants to be a law enforcement official, and he's talking about killing a Republican former Speaker of the Assembly in Virginia with 2 bullets to the head, and watching his children die in the arms of his mother, all kinds of hideous stuff. And we've seen a lot of this, folks, particularly as applies to Jews, of course. We've seen a lot of this. We've seen it come out of the mouth of elected Democrats. We've seen it come out of the mouth of guests and hosts who are platformed by various organizations, by even media, by podcasters. We've seen it at colleges and universities. This kind of language used by professors, that is faculty, as well as students and student groups. We've seen student groups that have alliances and associations with Hamas, a terror organization, a horrendous terror organization. And I've also found it interesting, since I've taken on the grifters, fake MAGA, isolationists, Jew haters, Holocaust deniers. I've also found it quite disturbing that you have media outlets, some of which claim to be independent, and websites, but more than that, that try to draw as much, activity to their websites, as many eyes and clicks and so forth to their websites, that's how they make money, these hits, as possible, through their headlines, by promoting controversy, and by attacking people who are attacking these other people who are making these horrendous statements. And then they sit back and they say, isn't this horrible? Isn't this horrible? When they're participants in it. Politico, by the way, being one of them. Mediaite being another one. But not just them. The Drudge Report, the New York Times, the Washington Post, scores of media outlets. Look how they're promoting Marjorie Taylor Greene now. They love her. But look how they've promoted Tucker Carlson and Bannon and Owens. So here's what I posted today. I had to post it 2 or 3 times because my iPhone, as I tapped it out with my right forefinger, kept changing words. We finally got it right, Mr. Producer? All anti-Semitic, racist, and bigoted messaging and other forms of communication should be aggressively condemned. I don't care if it's young Republicans or young Democrats, members of Congress, too many to count, media that platform and promote such poison, which is often, organizations that invite bigots as speakers and debaters, podcasters, comedians, and on and on. I also find it disgusting that some of those condemning the young Republicans in Politico, who most certainly should be condemned and removed, are as guilty as they are with their headlines and storylines and promotion of a long list of bigots. It's sinister. Even worse, those who routinely and publicly promote this garbage for their own ratings or clicks, etc., so-called media, are not even ashamed of it and seek to monetize it or worse. Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. I stated, and I am deeply concerned, that the likes of Tucker Carlson, Candice Owens, Steve Bannon, and their ilk, as well as their apologists, who are not real MAGA or conservatives or Republicans, but a cabal of grifters, psychos, and exploiters, are being mainstreamed and do have an impact on the minds of too many young people, and too many would be one, but it's clearly more than that. Where are the top Republicans denouncing them? Where are other broadcast hosts, columnists, and public officials? Those of us who speak out are few in number and often disparaged by the same media outlets that claim offense at the awful things reported in the Politico piece. I'm more than happy to have a bigger discussion about this. But as I observe and engage, I see too few with the guts to do so, including people in the left-wing media. And where are the top Democrats denouncing Mondami, Omar, Tlaib, Sanders et al.? And by the way, I don't mean a handful and a small handful not endorsing him. Where are they denouncing him? These are vile demagogues. They are routinely platformed by the corporate media. The fusion of the media with the Democrat Party makes it less possible to have a real and regular condemnation of these people or conversation about them. In fact, one wire service, I believe it was AP, recently ran a story suggesting legitimate criticism of Mondami and others is Islamophobia. Islamophobia. Well, what about CARE and scores of other like organizations with ties to Hamas, spreading their hate and propaganda, especially in the media? None identifies with the GOP. None of those groups do. Many work within the Democrat Party orbit, or they use Hamas propaganda, that is the media, from casualty figures and accusations of starvation and genocide in Gaza, allegedly perpetrated by the Israelis. They spread that throughout the media, accompanied at times with phony photographs, regurgitated not only by independent media grifters of the type I just spoke of, but Democrat Party officials and surrogates, which is obviously intended to promote Jew hatred. The corporate Western media, which is overwhelmingly Democrat and left-wing, has played a huge role in spreading this hate. I'm not talking about criticizing Israel. I'm talking about spreading blatant lies and hate. The rot within the Democrat Party and their media, not to mention their allied academic institutions, promotes the soft, if not outright embrace of terrorists and Marxist ideology, language, and front groups. What about the language used by the Democrats on any given Sunday on one of their network or cable shows against President Trump when he enforces the immigration laws, cuts programs and spendings, gives a speech and so forth? And I could go on and on. I wrote extensively about this on Freedom of the Press. Now, obviously, there are times when such analogies against certain individuals or movements actually fit, but not against this president and his millions of supporters. Last time I checked, he's the best friend Israel ever had, and he's the most openly an aggressive fighter against anti-Semitism in this country. Ever. This is nothing but agitprop, as Lenin called it. And part of the problem, the corporate media, numerous media websites, and desperate podcasters, among others, are a huge part of all of this. This cancer is in fact spreading. So Politico does the story on young Republicans. It's even worse. It's far worse. And Politico is a participant. In the meantime, I look forward to reading the text Politico will undoubtedly secure from elements within the Democrat Party to prove how ubiquitous this problem is, right, Politico? Now, for the morons out there who keep yelling free speech in the First Amendment, who don't know the Constitution from toilet paper because they're ignoramuses, this isn't about free speech. I'm not talking about the First Amendment and government action. I'm talking about we, the people, defending our civil society and our way of life from an evil and darkness that threatens them and those individuals and institutions that are spreading them. You see, we're allowed to use free speech too. We're allowed to use freedom of association too. We're allowed to turn people off. We're allowed to defund them. It's all in private, free activity. We must stop promoting these people. They're destroying our country. They're destroying our youth. They're destroying our party. They've destroyed the other party. And the left uses them. They attack them. And they use them and promote them. If we had a real press in this country, a press that really cared about this country, press that really cared about American principles, this would be a different place. A different place.